The subject of the investigation was a man who injured himself while working on the job as a carpenter. His claims were lower back injuries, which prevented him from standing or walking long periods of time or lifting anything over 5 pounds. Now, the setup for this case is a residence in a newer rural subdivision with all of the homes on acreages from 5 to 20 acres in size. The setup was tough, winding gravel roads throughout the subdivision with no real shoulders or off-road parking. Not the ideal circumstance, to be sure, but then few ever are ideal. After arriving on scene, I scoured the area and I finally found a little country road about a half a mile from the subdivision where I could sit somewhat unnoticed and watch the residents from a distance, as well observe all the avenues of ingress and egress into the neighborhood. I conducted a quick drive-by of the residence and observed the subject's registered pickup truck along with another vehicle that was registered to him and his wife at the provided residence. About 2 hours into the surveillance, I see something moving around on the property. Now, there was a lot of tall grass and trees and shrubbery in the area, and it made it difficult, to say the least, for me to see anything. So I grabbed my handy binoculars, I pulled them up, and I found the subject that was moving around. It was a large dog. He was running around doing, well, you know, doggy stuff. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. After about 15 minutes, I see the dog quickly look over towards the subject's residence. Then he starts running towards the house. Next, I see a male subject about 5 foot 8 inches tall, about 175 pounds, matching the general description of my subject, walking with the dog towards the vehicles. I grabbed my camera. I got zoomed in, and voila, it was my subject to be sure. He matched the photo ID that I had of him to a T. As he approached the vehicles, he slaps the side of the pickup bed. The dog jumps right into the back, and the subject gets into the driver's side, and the chase is on. Now, he gets going, and I watch as he drives towards the main road. Now, I'm a little nervous because if he comes my way on that main road, I have limited options as to what to do without getting made, and I hate getting made on day one. Lucky for me, he gets to the main road and he heads the opposite direction of me. Now, this presents a new problem for me. I was about a half a mile away, and when you know it, a semi-truck got between him and me, so I was able to maintain minimal visual of him around the big rig, even though he was about a half mile in front of me. As we approached a stoplight in a little town, I see my subject's vehicle moving into the left turn lane. The truck continues straight, so I'm able to get right behind my subject. I then followed him about 15 miles into the next town where he stopped at a convenience store, got some gas and got some smokes, and continued on. He then went to a home improvement store. Nice, I say to myself, this is going to be a good one. I let him get inside as I grabbed some video of him exiting his vehicle and walking across the parking lot. The dog, however, remained in the back of the truck. I grab my covert camera and away I go. Now, you know these types of stores, they're huge. I'm running up and down the main aisles. I'm looking for my guy. Where is he? Where can he be? I get to the far end of the store and there is no sign of him. I head over to the middle aisle. I come back down that middle aisle. Where is he? I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking up and down the aisles. Oh my goodness, did I lose him in the store? I decided to head out to the parking lot, fully expecting his pickup to be gone. As I start walking towards my car, lo and behold, there he is, getting into his pickup truck. Wow, what a stroke of luck for me. I never spend too much time in a store looking for my subjects before I return to my car. It's far better to not get any video inside than for them to leave while you're searching for them inside the store. Now, he heads out of the parking lot and the chase is on again. He heads into the downtown area and then right into a fast food drive-up. He gets some food and some drinks in the drive-thru, then he heads out of town back towards his residence. I take it easy on the follow back. I keep my distance. I know there are plenty of places for me to pull over for a short period of time along the side of that main country road and get video as he arrives at his house. As he arrives back at the residence, I do just that. I pull over about a half a mile away, get my camera zoomed in, I get all my video as he and the dog walk inside the residence. I can see he's carrying what appears to be a bag of fast food, 2 coffees, and a couple of large boxes, which I later determined were boxes of nails or screws. Now, I get set up back on my original stationary surveillance position and I sit and I wait. While sitting and waiting, I notice some large white clouds forming in the skies to the north. I know there's snow coming, so I'm hoping I can wrap this case up before it hits, as I'm about an hour away from my house. About an hour goes by and I see my subject and his dog exit the house. I then see him go over to what appears to be a storm cellar door at the back of the house. Opens that door up and then he goes down into the cellar. After about 20 minutes, I see him walk out of the cellar carrying several long 2x4 boards. Then he walks over to the opposite side of the house where I can't see him. But wait, he comes back. He's heading back down the cellar. Then he comes back a few minutes later with even more boards. Now, after about 10 trips like this, I decided I needed to get a better vantage point because he is obviously going to be building something on the other side of the house. I then went mobile and drove through the neighborhood looking for a sweet spot to sit. After a bit, I finally found it, a house for sale to the south. I just parked in the driveway and hoped that nobody lived there. It kind of had that vacant look to it, so I figured I was safe there for at least a little bit. From this position, I had the perfect view of his house, the cellar entry, and the side of the house that he was taking the wood to. But wait, it gets even better. The exciting part hasn't even came yet. As I sat there getting video of him gathering all of his 2x4s, his 2x6s, and sheets of plywood, I noticed something else. There, off in the distance, I see on the horizon a great white wall forming. Now, I've lived in Colorado most of my life, and I know a snowstorm a-brewing when I see a snowstorm a-brewing, and this one looks like a doozy. As he starts working, I finally figured out what he was building. It was a porch, it looked like. But why so many boards? He had enough wood to go almost all the way around the house. Yep, that is what he was building, a wraparound porch on his house. Now, I watched him as he worked and as he kept watching that oncoming storm himself, too. I also noticed he often put his hand on his lower back. He did a lot of stretches and a lot of grimacing. Then he kept on working. It was obvious he hurt, but it was also obvious that he kept working regardless of his injury. Noontime rolls around and the wife comes out. She brings what appears to be a couple of sandwiches and some drinks, and they sit down and they eat really quick. As they sit there, I see that he's pointing towards the north, towards that storm. I figured any minute now he's going to be packing it in and calling it a day. After they ate, he continued working on that porch. About an hour later, it finally hit. Light snow started coming down, but it was obvious it was going to increase, and heavier snow did come. I eventually had to move from my position as I could barely see his residence, and I wanted to keep getting video. Over the course of 4 hours, I kept getting closer and closer and closer as he kept working faster and faster and faster on that porch. He was relentless. He was determined, and that worked in my favor. I ended up with about 4 hours of video, folks, of my subject with an obvious injured back working harder than I had ever seen anybody work. I couldn't believe it. He got the entire deck done that day, most of it completed in a snowstorm. I barely got out of the neighborhood when I was done for the day. There was already about 6 or 7 inches of fresh snow, high winds, and more to come. It took me almost 3 hours to drive what should have taken an hour back to my house.